Okay, I think it's recording now.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, pause recording. Okay, thank you for reminding me. All right, so we're gonna move on to, oh shoot, I didn't mean to close the chat. There it goes, thanks. Okay, so the next file that we're gonna work with is arrays. So if you just double click on arrays, you should see a file that opens up. Again, like this is a little tricky. So as a learner, you have to decide, like, is it better for me to watch right now? Is it better for me to watch and follow along? Like, or maybe follow along and listen? Okay. If you have arrays open, great. So right now we talked about our computer can store like one piece of information. But generally we know that like computers are more complex. Sometimes we want to store a bunch of information together. So whenever we want to say like, hey computer, I don't want you to just like say the single thing. I actually want you to say like save a bunch of things together. We can put those into structured data types, and the two that people, there's actually three that people use, but the two we're talking about today are arrays and dictionaries. And then objects are the like most complicated, but we actually don't need that for our app tomorrow. So we're just going to talk about arrays and dictionaries. So a good thing to know about Cloud9, and I'm going to make this bigger. A good thing to know about Cloud9 is that right now I can't see like the end of my screen. So if I go to view and then wrap lines, now I can see the end of each line of code. So line 3 is actually like, it looks like 2 lines on here, but I know that line 4 actually starts on array indexing. So just like before, if I had a favorite band, I could say, Tanya, what's your favorite band or artist?
Tune Yards.
Tune Yards. Oh, nice. So Tanya's favorite band is Tune Yards. And like we wouldn't want to say like her second favorite band is, what's your second favorite band?
I guess I'll just say Beyonce.
Ooh, gotta go with me. All right, so like we could keep doing this, right? But it doesn't, like in a lot of cases, it doesn't make sense to structure our data separately when really it belongs together. I can't even think of it. Oh, you know who? Cardi B. I don't even know who that is, but all the kids are talking.
Oh my God, so fun.
So
Cardi B last weekend.
Yeah, her name keeps coming up. I'm like, who is this lady? So this is like, in theory, we could do this and then print out favorite band, and we should see Tune Yards. Let me clear this. Remember, I'm running this arrays.py file now. So Jenny kind of gave us this fun hint. You could just hit run and you see Tune Yards. Because it's not available on like every computer, it's also a nice habit to like do it in the terminal. So I could say Python and then the name of the file that I'm running, which is arrays. Tune Yards, great. And if I wanted to print the second favorite band, I would have to do something like print favorite band 2 and Command S to save. Now I get Tune Yards and Beyonce. Generally though, we want to store things together, which is why we store them in arrays. So I'm going to just go ahead and comment both of these out. When we want to access, sorry, let me back up. And again, I've taught this and like coded for 5 or 6 years now. So if I'm going too fast, let me know. I caught myself there for a second because I haven't told you really like how an array is structured. An array is a group of elements. Just like any variable, it can be stored with any name we want. So I could like call something banana if I wanted to, if that made sense to me. And the banana is going to be a collection of information. It might be a number as the first element. And then to separate my elements, I'm going to put a comma. And then I can put a different data type or the same data type. So now I might put the color blue as my second piece of information. And then I separate with a comma. And then I might put a float. And what's a float again when we talk about data types?
A decimal number?
Yeah, a decimal number, perfect. So I might put like, I don't know, 9.99. right now, each 1, 2, 3 pieces of these information is stored in the array banana. So if I were to print banana, I should see each of these 3 pieces of information come up. But so that's really why we kind of collect things together. It starts and ends with these square brackets, and each element in the array or a list is separated by a comma. Do you guys have any questions about arrays or like why they might be useful?
I have 2 questions.
Yep.
One, can you expand your terminal so I can see your bottom line?
Yep.
And then 2, an array would generally have something like, if you have a sentence, you could technically also do like word 1, like this is going to be the noun and this is the verb and all of that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But as an array, you would make a sentence and all of those elements together create a thought. Okay, like a thought.
Yeah, that's one way to think about it.
So all of the elements of the array would ideally have something to do with each other and not just random bits of information.
Correct. Yeah, this is a like kind of crazy example because like these don't really mean anything in relation to each other. But yeah, whenever you want to group pieces of information together in some kind of organized way, you would start creating an array. It's usually just like a list of things or like a collection of things. Great question.
Okay.
So in like the reason that it's great to like collect these different pieces of data together is because we can do some certain like methods to them, which means doing something with the list, and then we can loop through them. Meaning instead of printing favorite band 2, favorite band 3, we can actually like do something to each item in that element. So we're going to talk about those kind of reasons to have arrays. So the first thing we need to talk about is indexing, meaning what if I just wanted to know the first, second, third, last item in an array? So computers are really interesting because they start counting at 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3. So if I were to say the Beatles is actually the 0th element in my favorite bands array. No Doubt is actually the element indexed at 1. Red Hot Chili Peppers is indexed at 2. So 0, 1, 2. So for example, if I wanted to print my favorite bands and I wanted to print Red Hot Chili Peppers, I would say print favorite bands. If you are a lazy typer, you can just hit tab and it'll finish it for you. Favorite bands. And if I print 2, I should expect 0, 1, 2. I should expect Red Hot Chili Peppers to show up. Remember, I always have to save, so I'm going to do Command S. I'm going to comment out my printing of banana. And I expect to see Red Hot Chili Peppers. If I wanted to, instead of seeing Red Hot Chili Peppers, if I wanted to see the Beatles, what needs to change about line 8 if I wanted to see the Beatles?
0.
Yeah, my index should be 0. So I'm going to save Beatles. Good. If I wanted to see No Doubt, what should my index be?
1.
1. Yep. So that's what we call indexing arrays. And the thing to remember about it is it always starts at 0, which there's a lot of like computer science memes about like I did start at 0 and like this whole thing broke because I forgot that I need to count at 0. So that's something you'll just kind of through practice and mistakes you'll remember that always start counting with 0. We're going to do just 3 more things and then I'll give you guys a challenge, I think. Yes. So in addition to being able to index and pull out certain items from your array, we can also do a few methods. There's a bunch of array methods, meaning just like Python knew what the plus sign was and what the minus sign did and what the modulus or percent sign did, it already has some built-in things that it knows how to do, and we call those methods. So one thing it knows how to do is reverse. So if I wanted to reverse my favorite bands array, I could just type in favorite bands dot reverse. Anyone have a guess of what we should see?
You would have printed it backwards?
Yeah, it probably like prints it backwards, or maybe does the first thing last. We're not sure. Let's see what it does. I actually don't know. It doesn't do anything. So see how we got this none returned? That means I'm not using the method right. This is actually a perfect time for us to show you, like, even as someone who's coded before, I don't know everything, and that's why Google's your best friend. So I'm going to open up a new tab. And whenever you search things in Google, it's good to say, like, what are you doing? What language are you doing it in? And if there's a W3 Schools reference, that's usually a good, one of my favorite websites. So I'm going to type in, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to reverse an array. And what language are we using? Python. And notice how, like, it autofills, like, all of these different languages, because it's going to look different depending what language you have. So I'm going to put Python in. Reverse a list in place with list.reverse. I feel like that's what we did. Make list of a reverse. Maybe it doesn't actually, maybe I made that up. Oh, L.reverse.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then I have, it reverses it in place, and then it calls L again. So I think I have to call it one more time. So can you guys see this answer right here?
Mm-hmm.
It put our original array as 0, 10, 20, 40. Then it uses the dot reverse method. And then in order to actually see it, you have to call the array again. So I actually have to do this in 2 steps. The first thing is I reverse it, and then after it's reversed, then I can print it. Favorite bands. Let's see if that was it. Awesome. Did my array get reversed?
Yep.
Yep, because now meters is last. Another method you can use is sort. So I can say, here's the thing. We have reversed favorite bands. So from here on out, the computer, when it thinks favorite bands, it is now thinking of this reversed list because that's done. Okay. We can also sort it by using the same, it's called dot notation. We take the array name, which is favorite bands. Then we dot, and I think it's, look, Python gives us all the things we can do. We see that dot sort is one of them. So then I can save it, and then I'm going to print favorite bands. Now we should see something different. 2 yards. I'm printing favorite band, which was Tanya's favorite bands.
Oh, yeah.
On line 2. If we want to print the array, this is why CS is tricky, because, like, as a human, I knew what I meant, but the computer was taking it literally. If I want to print favorite bands, I need to make sure that's exactly what I'm telling it to do. And now it sorted it alphabetically. So N was first, R, the Beatles, and then the meters. If we wanted to, am I moving too fast?
I have questions.
Yep.
So I'm trying to understand what the point of having an array would be besides clustering things that are related to each other into one variable. Mm-hmm. So, like, first of all, like earlier we had a list of like index elements, like, why would we want to index an array? Like, why would we want to pull one out, for example? Or why would we want to pull 2 of them out at the same time?
When we get to APIs tomorrow,
mm-hmm.
or if we get to APIs tomorrow, or if it's back on campus, like, let's say, like, Twitter's a good example, or like Spotify is a good example. We'll work with the Spotify API, and when you make a request of all the songs by Beyonce, it's going to give you this data structure that's, like, lines and lines long. If you only for some reason wanted to know the first song, you'd have to index it at 0. If you wanted to know the 20th song, you'd have to index it at 19. So in these examples, it is kind of hard to like know why arrays are useful. But once you start building complexity, you'll understand the building blocks. It's kind of like me teaching you what a verb is without me teaching you how to write an essay.
Right.
Like verbs independently don't do anything, but when you're trying to write an essay, you need to know how to use verbs. So unfortunately, the answer kind of is like, be okay with this like not seeming very useful.
Okay.
Okay, good question though. Another thing we could do to our array is we could delete things. And so if I were to delete anyone not a fan of any of these bands, which one should we get rid of?
Well, you have to keep the Beatles. That's
Good,
all.
we have to keep the Beatles. All right, let's get rid of No Doubt then. So if I wanted to delete No Doubt, I would say I would put this DEL first, and then I would put the name of my array, and then I would tell it which item I wanted to delete. So I would have to go back up to Beatles, or No Doubt. No Doubt is the second element, which means it's indexed at 1. So I need to make sure I put a 1 here. And after I've deleted it, if I want to print favorite bands again, we should see that No Doubt has been sadly removed. It hasn't been removed. What did we remove? Oh, anyone know why that happened?
Was No Doubt not?
It was still sorting?
Yes, thank you. Awesome. So remember, we've done all of these things. We've reversed it, then we've sorted it. So when it pulled out the element indexed at 1, it actually pulled it from, at that point, it was Red Hot Chili Peppers was really the second element. So this is why coding gets tricky, right? Because like as humans, we assume things, and the computer is reading it literally. It's actually saying, before you delete the second item, you actually reversed it and then you sorted it. So the thing you think you're deleting is actually this modified array. And then the last thing you can do is add something. So if I wanted to add a new favorite band, Teddy, what's your favorite band?
Metallica.
Nice, in metal. So if I use this .append method, now when I print favorite bands, and remember I'm using tab to autocomplete, I should see all of these things done. We're ending soon. So I should see it has reversed, sorted, it pulled out the second element, and it added Metallica. Cool. There's a challenge here, challenge B, that just asks you to do 4 different things and 1 bonus. So I know we're going to get kicked out here in a second, but go ahead and I'll send out a new link and go ahead and try that challenge that starts on line 29. Any questions about the challenge?
Nope.
Okay, I think we're ending soon. Oh no, wait, we have 10 more minutes. Never mind. Go ahead and do the challenge. And let me know if any of the challenge things are confusing. Oh, sorry, Jenny. Arrays beginning and brackets. Yes. Yeah, the syntax is they begin and end with brackets, and then each item is separated by a comma. take another 30 seconds. If you don't get to the bonus, that's fine. I always like to leave like a little extension activity for people that finish early. Was anyone able to get through the first 4 challenges and want to share their screen and walk us through it? Or they got through the first 2 and we can work through the next 2 together? Volunteers?
I just went to the bathroom. I didn't hear what you said.
I was asking for volunteers that wanted to walk us through Challenge B. Like how they typed, what they wrote.
Yeah, for the first 2, I just wrote print.
Wait, share your screen with us.
Oh.
That way I don't have to.
It says I cannot start sharing it while the other participants share. Okay.
Okay, go ahead. Or you should be able to now, rather.
It still says I can't for some reason.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Is it maybe because it's being recorded, or?
I don't think so. Let me try stopping it. Okay.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I just wrote print, and it printed Davidson and Villanova.
Nice.
And to delete Duke, I just use the delete command.
Okay. Yep.
And then I added Virginia, but when I printed,
that's super weird.
yeah, it doesn't give me the whole.
It does not.
Mm-hmm.
Will you comment out line 40? So just put an asterisk.
Oh, I didn't save it.
I guarantee that's going to happen to like everyone, like at least a million times when you first start coding. You'd be like, why isn't this working? Okay. Cool. Yeah. And then, cool. Any questions about what Teji did?
I can't see his screen. Nikki, I was getting confused in line, where is it? Line 23. Mm-hmm. Right, you said print Villanova by indexing the NCAA teams. Okay, that's fine. And then after the colon, you said print NCAA teams with the question mark. I get an error message if I type it like that.
Yes, I was just trying to say like what goes in that question mark. That was just like my.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I thought you wanted us to do something.
Otherwise, the computer's going to say like you're indexing that question mark.
Sure. Like, okay. Yeah. I did get the error message, and I'm like, okay, you wanted us to see that.
Yeah. And generally, in error messages, like again, when you're beginning to code, you like freak out, but it actually is worse when you don't get an error message because then you don't have any hints. An error message usually tells you what file it is and what line it's on, so at least you can kind of investigate, which helps. I think we have a few more minutes before we get kicked off. 4 minutes. Oh, wait, we have to iterate. Okay, perfect. How you guys, let's try on finishing this lesson and then we'll see how we feel. Does that sound good? Mm-hmm. Okay, am I sharing my screen?
No.
Oh, okay. How do I do that? Okay. Okay, so the last piece of this lesson will be like making our own array and then iterating through it. So iteration in Python, if I didn't like know how to do that, again in Google, I could just type something like how to iterate. Iterate just means loop. Iterate Python. Okay. Generally, Stack Overflow is a pretty good place to look at documentation. Oh, this is kind of tricky because each item in our array is actually its own array, so that's probably not our best answer. Looping over a list. These aren't great documentation because let's try this guy. Perfect. So this kind of gives us our documentation. It says for S in Li, in this case, Li is our array, print S. This is actually how you'll see it in a lot of documentation, which I find confusing, but what it's saying is for S, S could be, it's a variable that you're calling each element. Each element you are saying is S. So this is saying for every element, which I'm gonna call S, in this array, remember the array name of the variable is Li, I want you to print out each element. So in this case, it's saying A, B, and then E. That's kind of like how you might look through documentation if you weren't sure how to loop. But let's say we want to loop through favorite bands. So I'm going to say something like for something in favorite bands, and then I want to do something with it. In Python, when we want to make like more complex lines of code, we separate them with this semicolon. I could call this S, just like the documentation. I could say for S in favorite bands, print S. Because the first part of your loop is always just whatever you want to call the element. So in this case, we should see all the favorite bands printed out one at a time. It's going to loop through my favorite bands array and print them out one at a time. Just going to make sure nothing else is being printed. Okay. So I'm going to run the arrays.py folder file, and I see all of my bands, including Teji's hard metal. For me as a developer, it does not make sense to call it S because S is meaningless. It makes more sense for me to call it band. For each band in favorite bands, I want you to print S. But I already see I have this error because I didn't call it S in line 39. I called it band. So I need to make sure I print out band. We're going to do one more example, and then I'm going to break you off to challenge C. So I'm going to do one more example, take questions, and then give you guys challenge C. So if I had a bunch of my favorite numbers, first I have to make my array, which is open